there, Dave. Hope you're doing well, man. Thanks for joining us. What's the reaction in Columbus overall that you've heard as Urban Meyer is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I think people have already adopted the Jaguars as their third franchise now after the Browns and Bengals. I think it's been mostly positive, which you never know because the best thing about Ohio State football is the fan base, and the worst thing about Ohio State football is the fan base. And you never really know because they are such a passionate group. They love them so much, and they get ownership over stuff. And I wasn't sure how they would react because Urban left. Obviously, he had the health issues. There was also friction there with the university. We can acknowledge that. So he left, though, and I think people wanted him to keep coaching. Now, they're in a great place with Ryan Day, and I think that's helped, too. I think if Ohio State went 7-5 last year, there would be a much different feel about this. But I think people are happy with what Urban did here, 83-9 record, national championship, and they know he loves Ohio. And they're happy with the succession plan he put in place with Ryan Day. And I think because of that, they feel like their program's in good shape. And Urban has been an advocate in his couple years off here, even the stuff he's done with Fox. He has been very pro-Ohio State. Silly little things like not even saying Michigan. He refers to them as the Wolverines on Fox. He's done a lot of stuff to let people here know that he is still an Ohio guy. So the reaction has been very positive, actually. I've been kind of proud of the fan base because I thought this could go either way. I think had he returned to college, it would have been a totally different story. But I think fans seem to be very supportive of him, and I'm glad for that. They should.
Dave, when we talk about Urban Meyer, obviously there is the culture of winning. And in order to have that culture of winning, it's the hard work, right? It's holding guys accountable. And sometimes if guys need to be yelled at, you got to, yell at them, to say the least. I mean, we've seen Urban Meyer on the sidelines, sometimes yell at his players, and a lot of coaches do that. The question is, though, so do you think, and take the off the field stuff in terms of building the culture, in terms of the weight room and all that stuff, take that off the field. I'm talking about the on the field demeanor right now of Urban Meyer. Do you think he has to kind of change it up a little bit, or can he get by with how he ran practice at Ohio State? Can he get by with how he coached guys on the sidelines during a game, or does he have to change his demeanor a little bit to adapt to the NFL athlete?
I think he has to change it a little bit. He is very intense. And Urban, maybe he doesn't demand perfection, but he demands excellence with the goal of perfection. He is a very perfectionist guy. He demands the best out of his players. He is very intense. I think that has to change a little bit, but I think it's going to change. If you listen to him at the news conference when he was introduced by the Jaguars, he basically implied that he cannot keep being the same guy he is with the health issues, and he's getting older. And I think he understands that he has to adapt that a little bit. And in college, it's much easier to get a hold of a 17 or an 18-year-old, and you hold the keys to everything. Think about it. I mean, think about the number of players Urban Meyer put in the NFL. And the way to get to the NFL is to get on that field. So if this guy is the gatekeeper for my NFL future, I have to listen to him. In the NFL, when you have guaranteed money and you're making millions of dollars, that's different. The threat of playing time, sure, you do want to play, of course, the competitors, but the ultimate goal, you've already made it. So I do think there's a different mentality, but it sounds like he's going to try to adjust that at least a little bit. I don't think Urban can physically be the guy he was. I mean, I think he changed things from Florida to Ohio State, and I think he's smart enough to realize he has to change at least a little bit this time around, too.
Dave Holmes from WBNS right here in Columbus joining us on Action Sports Shacks on ESPN 690 as we're live from Jacksonville to Dublin, Ohio at Urban Meyer's Pint House. And it's really an interesting dynamic. You just said it. He said in the introductory press conference, hey, I'm not going to be running around like a nut. That was the quote. I'm not going to run around like a nut on the practice field. And again, can he do that, right? It's easier said than done, perhaps, because it's in his blood. He's an intense guy, and it's worked for him. So how will he be at delegating and putting this NFL staff around him, I think, is something to be seen, and we'll find out along the way from Urban Meyer. You brought up Ryan Day and the success of Ohio State. I think that is the big difference. I was thinking about this last night. He feels like so much more a Buckeye than he does a Gator. I don't know if that's more recent because he was there at Ohio State. I don't know if that's because he's born and bred, if you will, in Ohio, or I just don't know because of the ending at Florida. And the big difference with the ending at Florida was the fact that it took 3 hires to replace the winning ways of Urban Meyer, and quite frankly, they still haven't replaced it to that level. Do you think Ryan Day is here for the long haul in Columbus? Do you think he is kind of like the next Urban Meyer, if you will, because there's already been a lot of success? And how much is he measured against Meyer with what he does for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, they will be forever linked because he was Urban's guy. Urban brought him in, and Urban handed the baton. So Ryan Day, I do think, is here for the long haul. I don't think he has any interest in leaving right now. Now, I will say this. I would not be surprised if at some point Ryan Day ends up in the NFL. I think given his age, given his experience, I think he could definitely end up back in the league as a head coach at some point. But I don't think that's coming for a long time. And I do think he needs to win a national championship here to get on that level. If you look at every coach here, you got to win one. I mean, Jim Tressel won his one back in 02-03, and Urban got his back in 2014-15. So you got to get one, and I think Ryan Day will at least stick around to get one. So the people are really happy with him here. He is an Urban Meyer guy in a way because they spent some time together when he was an offensive coordinator. But that is such a big difference of why the fans are good with him, because Urban was born in Ashtabula. He grew up. He was a grad assistant at Ohio State. First head coaching job at Bowling Green up in Northwest Ohio in Wood County. So he's been an Ohio guy. He breathed the rivalry unlike anyone since Woody Hayes. So I think they've accepted the fact that, yeah, we want Urban to go do something else. This is not Texas. It's not USC. This is something he wants to pursue. It's all the way down to Florida, and people have seemed to embrace it. But it's always easier to embrace him. You brought up Florida. It's always easier to embrace the breakup when you have someone waiting in the wings, right? I mean, that's the way it works. The easiest way to move on from a breakup is you have someone else right there. And I think that has helped Ohio State fans greatly.
I think they call that a side piece, if I'm not mistaken. Dave, this seems to be like a very Ohio State kind of centric thing we got going here. Brent's obviously in Columbus right now, and you follow the team very closely. So I'd be remiss to ask, and mind you, like, Jacksonville fans don't care, but just out of curiosity for my own well-being, Justin Fields. Justin Fields, he's had some ups and downs this past season, but finished off, I think, on a pretty dang good note. When you talk about Justin Fields, there's speculation right now, and I'm looking at a Mel Kiper mock draft, and I get it, Mel Kiper's at the end-all, be-all, but he has Justin Fields right now going number 7 to the Detroit Lions as the third quarterback taken. One would assume that Trevor Lawrence obviously is number 1, but you see people talking about Zach Wilson now. You see Trey Lance skyrocketing up boards. What am I missing with Justin Fields right now, where all of a sudden it seems to be like people are off him a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting because Justin Fields' greatest trait was his decision making, and people talk about what a smart player he was and a decision maker, and he didn't turn it over. And then he has 35 minutes of bad football against Indiana, and everyone's like, well, he sucks. I mean, it was so fast how people just got off of this Justin Fields must be a top 3 player bandwagon. For your fans in Jacksonville, yes, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence, even with Urban Meyer. I know some delusional Buckeye fans think, well, he's going to bring in Justin Fields. Stop that. That's not going to happen. It'll be Trevor Lawrence. But, I mean, I believe Justin Fields from a maturity standpoint. The hard part about college football and pro scouting, so often you get lumped with people that have nothing to do with you. And Justin Fields now I think he has a little bit of the Dwayne Haskins smell on him. And that's not fair because they're two entirely different players. I think Justin Fields is more mature than Dwayne Haskins. I think he's a better leader than Dwayne Haskins. So I like Fields. I think he has an underrated arm as far as accuracy down the field. He is stellar. I mean, 40 to 60 yards down the field, he throws a great, accurate deep ball. He's obviously very good with his legs, too, when he has to be. I think he's maybe being a little undervalued at this point. But that's the NFL draft. People love you, and then when they have enough time to pick you apart, they find things that they don't like about you. The NFL draft is so much more about talking yourself out of guys than talking yourself into guys.
Well, and with all due respect to Dwayne Haskins, I think Brett Martineau could beat Dwayne Haskins in a 40-yard dash competition as well. And Justin Fields is a little faster. So, I mean, there is a big difference between skill sets and what they bring to the table. Yeah, for sure. Although Stephen A. Smith famously tweeted that Dwayne Haskins doesn't have a good arm. He's a mobile quarterback, and he got just blistered by Columbus for that because he had like one 12-yard run the entire final season at Ohio State. Fields is a much more complete player than Haskins.
All right, let's wrap up with Dave Holmes here on Action Sports Jax on ESPN 690 from WBNS here in Columbus, Ohio. And by the way, Dave does the Ryan Day Coaches Show, did the Coaches Show with Urban Meyer, so obviously familiar with Urban up here from the Ohio State days. We've got some locals now. You talk about Tyreek Johnson, Marcus Crowley. There's a Trinity Christian connection with Sean Wade as well. They've been on the roster for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But if you flip around and you look at the Jags roster, there's a couple of Ohio State guys. Andrew Norwell would have been, I think, before your time, Dave, here in Columbus. But most recently, Devon Hamilton. And Jags draft Devon Hamilton in the third round. And I'll tell you what now, he had some good moments as a rookie before getting hurt. How much did they like Devon Hamilton around here with the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's interesting. He was so under the radar. I think sometimes, interior lineman just feels like the least sexy thing you could ever draft. So they often go under the radar. But he is such a complete player. And you see it at the college level with Hamilton, and the Buckeyes had one this year with Tommy Togiai when he missed the championship game against Alabama. You remove the guy on the interior line who's eating up two people at once, and it's noticeable. I mean, interior lineman, you don't notice him until you do. And he was such a complete player here. He really helped. I mean, at Ohio State, they breed pass rushers. Well, first off, they breed Bosa's, but then they also breed guys like Chase Young. And I mean, Sam Hubbard's having a great career now in Cincinnati. They have so many good edge rushers, but that's able to happen because of guys who eat up interior, like Devon Hamilton. And he is such a complete player. I remember thinking, why is he not having a late first round, early second round grade? It blew my mind. So I think you guys got a good one in him. I really, really do. And I'll be curious to see how many Buckeyes Urban drafts. The joke has always been, up here, a lot of Brown fans, that they just avoid Buckeyes like the plague. And, for some reason. But I'd love to see him because Urban put a staff down here that develops players like none other. I mean, that is the easiest recruiting pitch at Ohio State is point to the NFL, say we've got more guys than anyone. And, yeah, he's done a great job. So I bet there will be more of a Buckeye pipeline. But it will not be Justin Fields. But there will be plenty of Buckeyes, I think, headed to Jacksonville at some point.
Dave Holmes, Dave, tell everybody at Urban Meyer's Pint House to watch you on TV tonight this weekend. Tell them all hello.
So I assume that 10 TV in Columbus is already on the TVs there. If not, you guys got to flip it for. Do that much for you. Change the channel for our station.
Thanks, man. We appreciate you jumping on. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, guys.